"Baby, forgive me. There's no Christmas for us," the maid cried, not knowing a millionaire was listening. Christmas Eve, December 24th. Rain poured endlessly over Seattle, washing the city in cold silver light. Christmas lights shimmered against the wet pavement, reflecting warmth that didn't reach everyone. And there, in front of the Grand Ward mansion, a thin woman knelt on the soaked ground, holding her little daughter in her arms. "Luna, my sweet girl, I'm so sorry." Her voice broke, trembling between raindrops. Luna, only 6, wore a worn-out red coat. She lifted her face toward her mother, eyes wide and glassy with tears. "Mom, Santa's not coming again, is he? Is it because I wasn't good this year?" The question cut deeper than any blade. Clara Jimenez, 32, housekeeper of the Ward family, couldn't lie. She only pulled the child closer, letting the rain hide her tears. "It's not your fault, sweetheart. It's me. I lost my job. This year, we won't have Christmas." Luna froze, then buried her face in Clara's chest, sobbing. Clara trembled, but not from the cold. The rain fell harder, swallowing their small silhouettes in gray silence. Behind them, the mansion glowed in golden light, the giant Christmas tree shining proudly through the window. 2 worlds, one bright, one broken. A few meters away, a black car stopped by the curb. Ethan Ward, the owner of the mansion, had just returned from his last Christmas shopping. Holding a few gift bags, he was about to enter when he saw them. 2 figures kneeling by the gate, drenched, fragile, heart-shattering. He recognized them immediately. Clara, his housekeeper for 3 years, and her daughter Luna, the same little girl who always shared candy with his son, Alan. The sight froze him. For a moment, everything else disappeared. He didn't move. He just stood there in the dark, letting the cold rain sting his face. And suddenly, memories returned. Himself as a child, standing by a fogged window, watching other kids open gifts he never had. His father was gone. His mother always busy. Christmas had meant nothing but loneliness. He remembered the ache of being unseen, the belief that happiness belonged to others. And now, seeing Clara clutching her daughter under the rain, that ache came back full force. He took a hesitant step forward, then stopped when he heard Clara's voice, soft, shaking, breaking. "My little girl, forgive me. I promised you dinner, a gift, a Christmas tree, but I couldn't keep my promise. I failed you." Luna shook her head. "It's okay, Mom. We still have each other." But her voice cracked before she burst into tears again. Ethan clenched his fists. His chest ached. He wanted to run to them, to cover them with his coat, to say something, anything, but guilt froze him. That house behind them was his. That injustice happened under his roof. He turned away, heart heavy, rain mixing with his breath. He had planned to wait until morning, but he couldn't. The image of Clara in the rain burned into his mind. Ethan turned back toward the mansion, heart pounding. Behind him, Clara sat still in the downpour, rocking her child gently, humming a lullaby through tears. "One day, we'll have a real Christmas, my love," she whispered. "Just not tonight." Her face burned despite the cold. She didn't know that the man walking away into the rain was the very man who would soon change their lives forever. The rain kept falling, as if the sky refused to rest. Each drop struck the roof like a heartbeat echoing through the night. Slow, heavy, endless. Ethan stood still in the darkness, neither stepping forward nor turning away, his eyes fixed on the fragile figure kneeling in the storm. In that moment, he knew something was terribly wrong inside his own house. He turned to leave, but the image of that woman in the rain burned into his memory like a scar. He didn't yet know what had happened, only that her despair wasn't born from nowhere. It had roots, and to understand the pain of this night, we must go back. just a few hours earlier on the morning of December 24th, when everything still seemed perfectly normal. Morning of December 24th. Fog blanketed the modest rooftops of South Seattle, and cold air crept into every crack and window. Clara Jimenez shivered as she rose from her worn mattress, brewed a cup of instant coffee, and woke her daughter softly. "Luna, wake up, sweetie. Mommy has to leave early. Don't forget breakfast." Half asleep, Luna murmured, "Mom, Santa's coming tonight, right?" Clara smiled faintly, brushing the girl's messy hair. Of course, Santa never forgets good little girls. That smile hid a worry she could no longer name. If she received her salary today, she planned to stop by the thrift shop near the bus stop and buy a doll for Luna, the first Christmas present of her life. For 3 years, Clara had worked for the Ward family, one of the wealthiest in the city. The job was demanding but steady. Ethan Ward, her employer, a respected architect and widower, was kind and polite, a rare sort of rich man. Yet his decency only fueled resentment in one person, Mrs. Margaret Ward, his mother. Margaret was the embodiment of a fading world, elegant, rigid, and merciless. A decade of widowhood had turned her heart colder. She ruled her son's mansion as if it were her kingdom. From the first day Clara crossed that threshold, Margaret disliked her. Not because Clara failed, but because she was too good, too diligent, too kind, too loved. 5-year-old Alan, Ethan's son, adored her, hugging her every morning. And on rare weekends, when Clara brought Luna along, the two children played together, as if born under the same roof. That innocence, that equality, was intolerable to Margaret. In her eyes, there must always be a line between master and servant, and Clara, the poor maid, was the line she wanted erased. That morning, the mansion shimmered in gold. The towering Christmas tree glowed in the center of the living room, its crystal ornaments catching every light. The scent of cinnamon and coffee filled the air. Clara moved quietly through the kitchen, setting the table, polishing glasses, brewing coffee for Margaret, warming milk for Alan. The boy ran in, laughing. "Good morning, Miss Clara. Santa's coming tonight, right?" She laughed softly, adjusting his collar. "He sure is. Santa never forgets the good ones." Moments later, Ethan descended the stairs in a dark suit, briefcase in hand. "Thanks for breakfast, Clara. I'll be home late tonight." "Yes, sir. Have a good day." He smiled and left. The smile was brief, but somehow warmed her cold morning. She didn't know it was the last morning she would ever stand in that house as an employee. When Ethan's car disappeared down the road, Margaret appeared. Dressed in an emerald velvet gown and pearls, she didn't greet anyone. She simply raised her porcelain cup. "Coffee?" "Yes, ma'am," Clara whispered. Margaret sipped, eyes sharp as glass. There was something predatory behind her calmness, something waiting to strike. By mid-afternoon, 2 of Margaret's wealthy friends arrived for tea. Their laughter filled the room, perfume, diamonds, and arrogance blending into the air. Clara served in silence, her presence fading into the wallpaper. Then Margaret's voice cut through the chatter like a blade. "Clara, where are my crystal ornaments from Italy? The red box? They're gone." Clara froze. "Ma'am, I haven't touched any box." "Oh, really?" Margaret sneered. "Then why did they disappear right after you cleaned the living room?" Her friends exchanged mocking smiles. One added, "Maids these days." So bold. Clara's heart pounded. "I didn't take anything, Mrs. Ward. I swear to God." Margaret stood, folding her arms. "And the imported turkey from the freezer? Gone too? Did you steal our Christmas as well?" Laughter erupted. Tears burned Clara's eyes, but she forced herself to stand straight. "You can fire me, but please, pay my salary. I need it to feed my daughter." "Salary?" Margaret's voice turned icy. "Consider this your lesson. No pay. Get out of my house, now." For a heartbeat, the room went silent. Only the sound of Clara's heartbeat and the mocking laughter of women who had never known hunger. She clutched her worn bag tightly, then bowed deeply. When she raised her head, her eyes were wet, but her voice calm. "You can take away my job, Mrs. Ward, but you'll never take away my dignity." The heavy door closed behind her with a hollow thud. Outside, rain began to fall, cold, sharp, merciless. The drops ran down her cheeks, blurring with her tears until sorrow and pride became one. Clara walked on, her small figure fading into the storm. That year, Christmas died, not from poverty, but from cruelty. Outside, the rain kept pouring, but inside Ethan, another storm was raging, louder, sharper, impossible to contain. He turned from the gate, striding toward the mansion, shoes splashing through puddles, his breath ragged, his chest burning with anger and guilt. He couldn't wait for morning. He needed answers. Now. The door burst open. The golden light from the living room revealed Margaret Ward, sitting calmly on the sofa, a glass of red wine in hand. She looked up, startled, as her son appeared soaked to the bone, eyes burning. "Ethan? What on earth? Where have you been? It's pouring outside." He threw his keys onto the table, his voice rough. "Mother, I need to know, what happened to Clara today?" Margaret blinked, her expression smooth, composed. "Oh, that? I dismissed her. The maid was caught stealing, and when I confronted her, she was insolent. We can't keep that kind of person here." "Stealing?" Ethan's voice tightened. "What exactly?" "The Italian crystal ornaments and the turkey from the freezer." "And you have proof?" Margaret took a slow sip of wine, her tone dismissive. "I don't need proof. I have common sense. Who else could it be? No one else comes in here." Ethan's jaw clenched. "So, no one saw her take anything?" "No, but she's the only one who could have." "And why, Mom? Why would she steal on the very day her salary was due?" The question hit like a blow. Margaret froze, the wine catching in her throat. Ethan leaned closer, eyes locked on hers. "I just saw her outside the gate. She was kneeling in the rain, apologizing to her daughter because they won't have Christmas dinner. Does that sound like a thief to you? Would a thief kneel in the rain instead of running away with what she stole?" Silence. Thick. Heavy. Margaret's gaze faltered for the first time. "Ethan, you're accusing your own mother." "No," he said quietly. "I'm looking for the truth, even if it hurts." He turned, heading for the stairs. Margaret stood abruptly. "Where are you going?" "To your room." "You can't. Ethan, I forbid it." He didn't answer. The wooden door creaked open. The room was spotless. Too spotless. He began opening drawers, one by one. Margaret followed, voice trembling with fury and fear. "You have no right to search my things." "And you have no right to destroy someone's life," he shot back, cold as steel. The last drawer slid open. A faded yellow envelope lay in the corner. Ethan pulled it out. Inside was a legal document, the will of Emily Ward, his late wife. The first line made his vision blur. "I, Emily Ward, leave $500,000 to Clara Jimenez, the woman who saved my life after my cardiac arrest on June 12, 2019. His hands shook. Memories crashed over him. The night Emily collapsed, Clara's frantic voice calling 911, her hands pressing against Emily's chest, keeping her alive until the paramedics arrived. Clara had saved her. He never knew Emily had written this. Behind him, Margaret whispered, "Don't read it." Ethan turned slowly, eyes dark. "How long have you known?" She looked away. "You were supposed to transfer this money to Clara," he said, voice trembling with fury. "How does this will end up in your drawer?" "Ethan, you don't understand. That money belonged to the family. Emily was emotional, irrational. I just did what was right." "Right?" Ethan laughed bitterly. You call stealing someone's inheritance and ruining her life, right? Margaret's lips quivered. She was manipulating you. She was making Alan love her more than his grandmother. I was protecting you. No, Mother. You were protecting your pride. He placed the will on the desk, voice low, final. You're not just cruel, you're a thief. Margaret stepped back, tears streaming, not from remorse, but from fear. Ethan didn't look at her. He folded the will gently, as if handling something sacred, something lost. His voice softened, but didn't waver. The woman you humiliated tonight, she was our family's savior. He walked away, leaving his mother standing in the dark. Outside, the rain fell harder, as if the sky itself was trying to wash away every lie that had ever stained that house. Night had fallen deep. The rain had quieted to a mist, leaving the streets glistening under pale yellow light. Inside his office, Ethan sat motionless, the will still lying open beside an untouched glass of wine. The handwriting of his late wife, Emily, seemed to stare back at him, demanding he face what he had ignored. A dull ache pulsed in his chest, not only from his mother's betrayal, but from his own blindness. For 3 years he had let an innocent woman live in poverty and humiliation under his own roof. The image of Clara kneeling in the rain returned, haunting him. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt ashamed of his silence. Ethan picked up his phone and made 3 calls. First to the bank, ordering the full transfer in Clara's name, plus 3 years of interest. Then to a catering service, asking them to prepare a perfect Christmas dinner: roasted turkey, pumpkin soup, mashed potatoes, apple pie, red wine, and candy for a little girl. Deliver it before midnight, he said quietly. Make sure it's beautiful. His last call was to a late-night toy store downtown. He chose a brown-haired doll, a paint set, some books, and a puzzle. Wrap them nicely, he told the clerk. The card should read, "From Santa, with love." An hour later, just before midnight, a delivery van pulled up in front of the old apartment where Clara and her daughter lived. 2 workers in red jackets carried boxes and trays that smelled of warmth and cinnamon. They knocked on the door. Clara woke to the sound, wrapped a thin sweater around her, and opened it cautiously. The chill rushed in, along with the scent of fresh food. "Yes?" she asked, still half asleep. "Delivery for Ms. Clara Jimenez," one of them smiled. "Merry Christmas." She stood frozen as they began setting everything on her small table: golden roast turkey, bread, wine, fruit, and piles of neatly wrapped gifts. The dim apartment bloomed with color and light. It felt unreal, like stepping into someone else's dream. She covered her mouth, eyes brimming. She didn't know who had sent it, but her heart already guessed. From the back room, a small voice called, "Mommy, what's happening?" "It's okay, sweetheart," Clara whispered, forcing a smile. "Someone sent us a surprise." Luna ran out, eyes wide, gasping at the sight of the gifts. "Mom," she squealed, "Santa Claus really came." That simple sentence broke Clara. She knelt, hugging her daughter tight, tears spilling freely, tears of joy this time. "Yes, baby," she whispered, voice shaking. "Santa came." Outside, a black car stopped at the corner. Ethan stepped out, coat damp with mist. He stood for a moment, watching through the small window. 2 figures bathed in golden light, holding each other amid laughter. His throat tightened. Maybe this was what miracles looked like, ordinary people finding hope again. He waited, then walked to the door and knocked softly. The footsteps approached. The door opened. Clara stood there, eyes red but smiling faintly. "Mr. Ward." "Ethan," he corrected gently. "I'm sorry to bother you. I just wanted to give you this." He handed her the sealed envelope containing the will. "It's proof that everything tonight is real. The money's in your account now. It's yours. I only did what I should have done long ago. Her hands trembled as she took it. "I don't even know what to say." "Then don't," he replied. "Just thank the person who reminded me what kindness feels like." They stood there, the silence soft between them. Luna ran over, holding up her new doll. "Mr. Ethan, did you know Santa? He found our house." Ethan laughed quietly. Maybe he just needed a little help finding the right street. The small room filled with laughter. Outside, the first snowflakes of the season began to fall, glimmering under the lights like tiny stars. Clara looked toward the window, then back at him. Their eyes met, and in that glance, something changed, something gentle and permanent. Ethan drew a deep breath, the weight in his chest finally lifting. Looking at the two of them, he said softly, almost to himself, "Sometimes Christmas miracles don't fall from the sky. They come from a heart that finally wakes up." The apartment smelled of warmth and cinnamon. Luna sat at the table, spooning mashed potatoes, her eyes glowing as if their tiny home had turned into the most magical place in the world. Clara could hardly believe the golden turkey, the wine, the wrapped gifts. Everything was real, and it was theirs. Ethan lingered by the door, ready to leave, until Luna looked up. "Mr. Ethan, you're not going, right? Santa never eats dinner alone." The innocence in her voice made him laugh, a little awkward. Clara hesitated, then smiled. "You can stay if you're not busy." He nodded. "I'd like that." He took off his coat, feeling as if he'd just stepped across a line between guilt and grace. They sat around the small table, the warm light catching in their glasses. No music, no glitter, just the sound of laughter and cutlery. For the first time in years, Ethan ate without thinking of work or loss. "You didn't have to do all this," Clara said quietly. An apology would have been enough. Ethan set down his glass. "No, it wouldn't. I should have known what my mother was doing. I lived in that house. I should have seen it. You saved Emily's life. I owe you more than money." Clara met his eyes, calm and kind. "I didn't save her to be rewarded. You help because it's right." He smiled faintly. "Maybe that's what makes you different." A soft silence followed, broken only by Luna's voice. "Mom says when you do good things, the universe sends good things back. Is this the good thing?" They both laughed. "Maybe," Ethan said. "Maybe we all needed a little magic tonight." After dinner, Clara cleared the table. Ethan insisted on helping. He was clumsy enough to drop a spoon into the sink, and she couldn't help laughing, a sound he hadn't realized he missed. "You've never washed dishes before, have you?" "Not once," he admitted, "but I learn fast." "I hope so," she teased. When they were done, they sat by the window, watching the snow drift outside. The city lights blurred behind the frost. Clara's hair caught the glow of the street lamp, soft and gold. Ethan looked at her for a long moment, realizing he'd been chasing everything in life except what really mattered. "Clara," he said finally, voice low, "if you hadn't saved Emily, I'd have lost everything. My son, myself. I don't know how to thank you." "Don't thank me," she replied. "Just don't let anyone else go through what I did." He nodded. "I promise." Luna had fallen asleep on the chair, clutching her new doll. Clara tucked a blanket around her and returned to sit across from him. They watched the snow together in peaceful silence. "You know," she said softly, "for years, every Christmas Eve, I made the same wish, that Luna would never feel forgotten." Ethan smiled. "And tonight, Santa finally showed up." "Yeah," she said, a quiet laugh escaping. "Turns out, Santa doesn't ride a sleigh. He drives a black car and carries legal documents." They both laughed, light and real. For a moment, the walls between them simply disappeared. Ethan looked around the small, worn apartment. "You've made this place feel like home," he said. Honestly, my mansion never felt this alive." Clara looked at him, unsure how to respond, but something inside her eased, like warmth returning to frozen hands. When the clock struck 1, Ethan stood. "I should go. Thank you for letting me stay." Clara walked him to the door. "Thank you for remembering your kindness." He smiled faintly. "I'm not sure I found kindness again, or maybe you and Luna brought it back to me." The cold wind rushed in when the door opened, but the warmth between them lingered. "Merry Christmas, Clara." "Merry Christmas, Ethan." As he drove away, Clara stood by the doorway, watching the taillights fade into the snow. In her hand, she still held the folded will and a note that read, "Justice and gratitude, from Emily and me." She looked up at the pale sky and whispered, "Thank you, Emily." Then she returned inside, brushed Luna's hair from her forehead, and smiled. Something in her had shifted, quietly but completely. This Christmas had no tree, no fireworks, yet it had something more precious, hearts mended by grace. And somewhere down the snowy street, Ethan smiled to himself. What was lost could never return, but something new had begun, something simple, something good. Sometimes redemption doesn't come from courts or money. It comes from a shared meal, a forgiving gaze, the laughter of a child. And for Ethan, that was the greatest Christmas gift of all. The next morning, the first light of Christmas spilled through the windows, glinting off the thin frost covering the lawn. Ethan drove back to the mansion in silence. The road shimmered with morning mist. Last night had been the warmest moment of his life. Simple, real, human. But he knew the hardest thing was still waiting. The house stood quiet under the pale light. No music, no scent of cinnamon, only cold air and silence pressing against the walls. Inside, Margaret sat on the sofa in the same elegant dress from the night before, an empty glass of wine beside her. Her eyes were red, but not from remorse, only wounded pride. "You're back," she rasped. "I hope your little maid is satisfied." Ethan's voice was calm but firm. "She's not a maid, Mother. She's someone you owe an apology to." Margaret scoffed, dry and bitter. "Apology? For what? She manipulated you, turned you against your own mother. Can't you see that?" Ethan stepped closer, his tone low but sharp. "I see everything now. I saw her kneel in the rain, begging her daughter's forgiveness because she couldn't give her Christmas dinner. I saw her humiliated for a crime she didn't commit, and I found what you hid. Emily's will." Color drained from Margaret's face, though she tried to stand tall. "Emily was naive. That woman didn't deserve our family's money. I was protecting you." "No," Ethan said quietly. "You were protecting your ego." He took a deep breath, his words slow and heavy. "You destroyed a little girl's Christmas because of pride. I can't let that continue." Margaret's voice cracked, rising with panic. "What are you saying? You're throwing me out of my own home?" Ethan looked around the vast room, the place that once felt alive, now hollow and cold. "No," he said softly. "You already did that yourself the moment you replaced love with hate." She staggered back, trembling. "Ethan, you can't. I'm your mother." He nodded, his voice rough but steady. "And because you are, I forgave you before. I stayed silent. But not this time. You need to leave. Today." Silence filled the room. Outside, snow began to fall again, thin and quiet, as if the sky itself were saying goodbye. Margaret looked at her son, lips trembling, unable to speak. She knew she had lost, not her home, but the faith of the only person who had ever truly loved her. After a long moment, she turned and climbed the stairs. The sound of drawers closing, a suitcase being dragged, a door shutting softly. Ethan stood where he was, listening until all sound faded. Then the crunch of wheels on gravel outside. He exhaled slowly. The house felt lighter, emptier, but somehow free. Looking around the grand, silent hall, he whispered to himself, "This house had everything, except warmth." Outside, the snow kept falling, and in that silence, Ethan knew one chapter of his life had ended. Sometimes, to make a home live again, you have to let the cold finally leave. 2 days later, the snow had stopped. Morning sunlight spilled through the tall windows of the Ward mansion, touching the empty halls. Ethan stood in the living room, surrounded by silence. Since his mother's departure, the house had changed. Quieter, yes, but hollow. There was peace, but no warmth. He pulled out his phone and called a familiar number. "Clara?" he said softly when her voice answered. "I need your help, but not in the same way as before." 3 hours later, she arrived at the gate with Luna by her side. The little girl held her doll tight, her breath visible in the cold air. As the iron gates opened, Clara looked at the mansion she had once left in humiliation. It still stood tall and beautiful, but somehow gentler now, as if waiting for redemption. Ethan stepped out to meet them. "Thank you for coming," he began, his tone sincere. "I wanted to ask if you'd come back, not as a housemaid, as the head of household management. You'd oversee everything with full salary and benefits. And I'd like you and Luna to live in the guest house behind the mansion. It's been empty too long." Clara froze, eyes glistening. "You don't have to do this." "It's not charity," Ethan said, smiling faintly. "It's trust. I need someone who understands this home, not its walls, but its soul." She looked at him, her eyes softening. "Then yes," she whispered, "I'll come back, and I'll make this place alive again." Ethan exhaled slowly, relief flickering across his face. "Thank you, Clara." That afternoon, they moved into the small cottage at the back garden. The roof was dusted with snow, the windows old but welcoming. Luna ran in circles, laughing. "Mom, we have a garden?" "Yes," Clara smiled. "And in spring, we'll plant real flowers." Days passed, and the mansion began to change. The scent of coffee filled the mornings. Children's laughter echoed down the halls. Clara rearranged rooms, replaced wilted plants with fresh blooms, opened windows for sunlight to pour in. The cold house began to breathe again. Alan and Luna played on the carpet while Ethan watched, smiling to himself more than he realized. One evening, Ethan came home to find Clara in the kitchen, sleeves rolled, hair slightly messy, the smell of cookies drifting through the air. The sunlight caught on her shoulders, turning the moment into a quiet painting. He stopped at the doorway. She turned, startled. "You're home early. I was just baking for the kids." He smiled, his voice rough. "It smells amazing. This house finally smells like Christmas." Her cheeks flushed. "Maybe it's just been too long since anyone cooked here." "Or maybe," he said gently, "it's because the person cooking brought something else with her." They both fell silent. Outside, snow was melting, revealing the first blades of green. Clara poured 2 cups of tea and handed one to him. "Thank you for trusting me again." Ethan looked at her, his voice soft but firm. "Not again, Clara. I should have never stopped." Their eyes met, only for a moment, but it was enough. Something tender stirred, quiet but undeniable. That night, Clara and Luna stood in the garden, watching snowflakes drift under the lamplight. From the terrace, Ethan watched them, the sound of their laughter filling the cold air. He realized what had been missing all along, not money, not success, but this: warmth. Later, in his study, he wrote on a piece of paper, "Sometimes all a house needs to live again is someone who knows how to smile inside it." He paused, then smiled for real. Out in the garden cottage, Clara read a bedtime story to Luna, her voice soft and calm. The lamplight spilled through the window, glowing like a small beacon in the night. And inside her heart, something new had begun to bloom. Gentle, but real. Since the day Clara and Luna moved in, the Ward mansion was never the same. It changed, not with paint or wealth, but with laughter and life. Morning sunlight streamed through wide-open windows. From the kitchen came the scent of coffee and children's giggles. Luna and Alan raced through the halls, their laughter echoing like small bells. Every time Ethan passed by, he couldn't help but smile. For the first time in years, his house and his heart felt alive. Clara became the soul of the home. She didn't just organize work, she breathed life into every corner. Fresh flowers filled the rooms. The lights stayed warm until late evening. Dinner always smelled of comfort and love. Ethan would often watch them, Clara, Luna, and Alan, laughing together at the table, and he'd realize, for the first time, he wasn't alone. Across town, Margaret lived in silence. Her apartment was luxurious but empty. She still had money, still had name, but no one to share it with. No phone calls, no visitors, no love. In her mirror, she saw herself, aged, bitter, and utterly alone. And maybe, for the first time, she understood. Hatred can't warm a heart. Seasons passed. Spring brought flowers to the garden. Summer filled the house with light. Autumn came with apple pies and the sound of children reading aloud. Then winter returned, another Christmas 1 year later. The mansion glowed with golden lights. A tall tree sparkled with ornaments made by 2 small hands. Luna and Alan wore red hats, laughing as they placed the star on top. Clara stirred a pot in the kitchen while Ethan set the table. He wasn't the distant man he used to be. His eyes now held something softer, something she couldn't name. "Careful, that tray's hot," Clara said. "Yes, ma'am, head chef," Ethan teased. She laughed. "You've never listened to anyone before? What changed?" "Maybe the person giving orders makes me want to listen." Their eyes met, and silence followed, a tender, warm silence. Only the crackle of the fireplace and the laughter of children filled the air. Dinner was joyful, lit by candlelight. When the kids ran out to see the fireworks, Ethan turned to Clara. Beside her wineglass was a small envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "A Christmas gift," he said softly. Inside was the property deed to the cottage she and Luna called home. "Ethan, I can't accept this." "You already have," he smiled. "It's yours now, legally and forever. You made it a home, Clara, and no one deserves it more than you." Tears welled in her eyes. "You don't have to." "I do," he said, stepping closer. "Clara, thank you for bringing life back to this place and to my heart." His voice trembled as he took her hand. "I love you, you and Luna. You've become my family. Will you marry me?" Clara couldn't hold back anymore. Her tears fell freely, but her smile said everything. She nodded, whispering, "Yes." Ethan pulled her into his arms. Their kiss was soft and pure, like the first snow outside, warm, quiet, and true. A week later, the garden glowed under strings of white lights, looking as if it were in bloom. Among ribbons and flowers, a small wedding took place. Luna tossed petals into the air while Alan clapped and laughed. Clara, in a simple white dress, walked hand in hand with Ethan down the aisle. As they exchanged vows, snow began to fall again, light, gentle, like blessings from above. In that moment, Clara remembered the Christmas a year ago, the cold rain, the tears, the despair. And now she was here, wrapped in warmth, surrounded by love. Because sometimes the greatest miracle isn't something that falls from the sky. It's love, born from kindness, growing quietly in the hearts of those who choose compassion over pride. And that Christmas, they didn't just find each other, they found home.